Hi everyone, this is Aaron from HH Watch Reviews. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we will take a look at another Watchdives and San Martin collaboration. The model number here is the SN0141W. This one is called the Leyenda Diver or the Legend Diver. I have here the black dial, but this watch is also available in green or blue. There is even a version 2 of the black dial, which I'll talk about later in this review. I purchased this watch from Watchdives.com and was offered an extra discount for it, but as usual that won't affect my review of the watch and they'll see this review at the same time as everyone else. If by the end of this video you're interested in purchasing this watch, I will leave an affiliate link in the description down below. Note that if you purchase the watch or any other watch using my affiliate links, it doesn't add any extra cost to you, but it does get me a small commission. This helps me fund more watches so I can get them for review on this channel. For today's wrist check, I am wearing the San Martin SN0116B-1, aka the Rainbow Watch. So I received this watch maybe a week or two ago, and as soon as I received it, I showed it to my wife, and she was like, okay, that's a lot of color on your wrist. But I'm here to review watches, so obviously I'm going to give this one a chance. I am going to start wearing it in rotation for the next few weeks and see how I feel about the rainbow colored bezel inserts, so we'll see in a few weeks. Now before we move on with the review, I'd like to take a moment and ask for your support. If you like the videos on my channel, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I know it's a huge ask, but it makes a huge difference in how my videos perform, so I'd really appreciate it if you could press those two little buttons down there. Let's look at the dimensions and specifications of this watch. The case measures 39 millimeters. It has a lug-to-lug distance of 48.3 millimeters. The thickness including the crystal is 12.3 millimeters. The lug width is 20 millimeters and the crowns measure 5.9 millimeters each. The watch runs on the Seiko NH35 automatic movement. It has 41 hours of power reserve, beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour. It hacks and hand winds. There is a box sapphire crystal with clear AR coating. The screw-down crowns give this watch 200 meters of water resistance, and the case and bracelet are all made out of 316L steel. The case on this watch is one that I hadn't seen before from Watchdives or San Martin. It is a compressor-style case without actually having the compressor mechanism. I won't go deep into how a compressor case works, but to explain it simply, the caseback is spring-loaded, and as the water pressure increases, the caseback tightens its seal and allows the watch to retain its water resistance. Here, Watchdives and San Martin use the look and design of a compressor case, but with the regular screw-down caseback. I really like the general look of these cases with the dual crown design. There's just something funky and cool about having two crowns on the same side of the watch. Both crowns are screwed in here and both are signed with the San Martin logo. The top one is used to rotate the bezel and the bottom one is used for the movement. Now that's not the only thing to like about this case. The finishing on this watch is also amazing. This is after all a San Martin collaboration, so it is expected to have great finishing. But what makes it even better here is the choice of finishing for each section of the case. So if we start by looking at the watch straight on, we notice that there are polished contours that accentuate different parts of the case. For example, the bezel is completely finished in high polish. This does two things in my opinion. It allows the dial to be the main focus, almost making itself disappear in reflections. Also, it adds a design break between the matte dial and the brushed lugs. The second area we have some polishing is on the edges of the lugs. There is this beautiful polished bevel that covers half of the lug tips and disappears into the side of the case. Once again, the polished areas can be seen when looking straight at the watch, and it makes the lugs look slimmer than they actually are. Also, the polished areas make a very beautiful silhouette. Now I know some of you must be thinking I'm exaggerating and that a polished bezel or a chamfer is nothing new or special. And honestly, I would agree with you. But for whatever reason, it just looks amazing on this case. It adds to the beauty of the case, or at least it makes me like this case that much more. And so I'm just sharing my feelings about it, if that makes sense. Alright, so enough about the polished bits. Let's look at the brushed areas. The top of the lugs have a brushed finish, and like I mentioned, there is a polished chamfer on the edges. The transition between the finishes is very well defined. The side of the case is also brushed. The brush strokes are so fine that it's hard to tell its direction. It almost looks like a satin finish. While we are looking at the profile, let's talk about the thickness. At only 12.3 millimeters thick, this case sits beautifully on the wrist. The box crystal is about 1.4 millimeters and the mid case only measures 5.4 millimeters, so the visual thickness is even less than 12.3 millimeters that I measured. The curved down lugs also help with how the watch wears on the wrist. The lugs curve down so much that when you place the watch on a flat surface, the case back doesn't actually make contact with the surface. And while we're talking about how the watch wears on the wrist, I want to mention that the crystal here measures around 35.4 millimeters in diameter. And I mention this because unlike other divers' watches, the bezel on this watch is under the crystal. So this will give you an idea of how the watch can wear on your wrist. Now let's flip the watch over and check out the case back. Well, it's another plain case back. It has a radial brushed finish with a bit of polished surfaces. Nothing special, but I do want to say that I hate this type of case back. I always struggle to open them with the tools that I have. So if it wasn't already obvious, I really like this case. Watchdives and San Martin didn't completely copy the original design, and I think that was the right decision. So for example, the Longines Legend diver has fully polished lugs, which in my opinion doesn't look as good as the lugs on this watch. So overall, this is a great looking and well finished case. Like I mentioned before, the bezel is under the crystal. You can rotate it using the top crown, so as soon as you unscrew the crown, you're able to turn the bezel. This is supposed to be a 120 clicks bezel, but the clicks are barely audible. You do feel them when rotating the crown, but it's not consistent. For example, between the 5 and 40-minute marks, I can really feel the clicks, but then I can only feel 1 or 2 clicks at a time after the 40 minutes mark. Sometimes it can even be 3 or 4 positions before I feel another click. At least it stays locked in when screwing the crown back in. I said before that I really like the dual crown look, but when it comes to actually using the bezel, I prefer a regular bezel. Because the crown is screwed in, it's just an extra step to rotate the bezel, and so I barely use it on this watch. And I can't even use it as a fidget spinner. You might have noticed that the markings on the bezel are not all printed in the same color. So the triangle at the 12, the 15, 30, and 45 markings have a green hue to them, whereas all the other markings are white. This is because this watch has two different lume applications. The green hue comes from the C3 green lume, and the white markings are BGW9 blue lume. The dual lume application is also present on the dial. Let's check out the lume and see which areas glow green and which glow blue. So what you just saw is the lume right after I blasted it with UV light. So yeah, the lume on this bezel sucks. The lume on the dial though is good, but it doesn't last very long. I mentioned at the start of the video that there is a version 2 of the black dial, which is also available to purchase now. Basically, Watchdives took the feedback from the community about the poor lume and went ahead and improved it. Here's the side-by-side of a lume shot taken from their website. The improvement is clearly visible and appreciated. But I did notice that the bezel is a lot shinier on the version 2. Like it has a glossier finish compared to the dial, which is matte. At least that's what it looks like in the video shared on Reddit. That might be a reason why they didn't make a version 2 of the blue or green dial. Maybe in order to be able to add more layers of lume, they need to change the finish of the bezel, which would result in a different tone of the color. Anyways, that's just my observation and speculation. Maybe the black dial was just more popular and they decided to make a version 2 of that dial only. Anyways, while the lume isn't great, the rest of the dial on the other hand is perfect. Starting with the printed San Martin text logo. No hex logo, just San Martin in all caps. I don't know why or who took this decision, but thank you. This is how it should be on all of their watches. It's simple and elegant and also creates this symmetry with the text on the bottom at the 6 o'clock, which in this case is only the word automatic and the water resistance rating. All the numeral and markers are printed on the dial. The minute markers play well with the fully graduated bezel. There is no date window, so the dial is very symmetrical and I absolutely love it for that. The hands are finished in high polish and well proportioned. They all hit the marks they need to. Oh, and something I noticed while writing this review, the hour hand is the same shape as the one on the Tudor Ranger. The arrow tip is a bit smaller on this watch, but still looks very similar. Just thought I'd share that since I hadn't noticed this before. So overall, I really like the execution of this dial, but I don't like the action on the bezel, and obviously the lume is very poor. I've had experience with the Beads of Rice bracelet from San Martin before. It was on the SN0141W I reviewed last year. This is basically the same bracelet with a different end length to fit this case. So it starts at 20mm at the lugs and tapers down to 16mm, and it goes back up to 18.4mm at the clasp. The links are held with screws and it's very easy to size the bracelet. I had to remove 2 links to fit my 7-inch wrist. The clasp also has on-the-fly micro adjustments, so I was able to get a good fit. The finishing on the bracelet is just as good as the finishing on the case. The end links fit the case perfectly. The brushing on the lugs flow nicely to the 2 external sections of the end links. The end link center is highly polished and this continues throughout the bracelet. The side of the links are polished. The clasp is fully brushed with the exception of these 2 polished chamfered edges. The San Martin hex logo is applied on the clasp. Opening and locking the clasp feels secure, and if we look inside the clasp, we can see the on-the-fly micro adjustment mechanism. This allows for an extra 5 positions of adjustment, great for when your wrist swells throughout the day. So in conclusion, this watch ticks a lot of boxes for me. It wears great on my 7-inch wrist. The finishing is done very well. The looks, well, the Legend diver from Longines has always been on top of my list of vintage watches that I find beautiful, so obviously I like the look of this watch. The Beads of Rice bracelet fits the design of this watch and it's also very comfortable to wear. The only 2 negatives are that the lume isn't great on this watch and the bezel isn't very satisfying to rotate and fidget with. So let me know in the comments below what you think of this watch. Which color do you prefer out of the 3 available? And also, what do you think of the shinier bezel on the version 2 of the black version? So that concludes my review of the Watchdives and San Martin collaboration, the SN0141W. If you're interested in buying this watch, the links will be in the description down below. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it with a friend or 2. And if you want to see more watch content, please subscribe to the channel and click on that notification bell to be notified when I upload new videos. As always, thank you for watching and I'll talk to you on the next one.